Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode with the brilliant Matt Jarvis, former England, West Ham, Wolves, and Norwich, amongst many others. Please enjoy this episode and don't forget to subscribe, particularly if you're on the YouTube or Spotify. Please subscribe to the channel. Really helps. With that, let's get into this one. Hope you enjoy it. Good morning, Matt, and welcome to the Hustle, Heart and Innovation podcast. Thanks very much for coming on. Firstly, is it Matt or Matthew that I'm going by this morning?
To be fair, it's only Matthew when I'm in trouble with my mum, I think. So Matthew's sort of that's that one. I'm sort of known as Jarv or Jarvo. So Matt's fine. Mostly, I'll answer to most things.
Right, let's go Matt then. See, I don't feel like I know you well enough for a Jarv or Jarvo yet. So.
Okay.
And just before we start as well, so had basically been given a challenge by Irons 53, who says, Matt was brilliant on Under the Cosh. Make this episode better than that. Right? So given we're going to be talking about injury, which has got its sort of depth to it, let's keep the essence of that challenge in mind and try and inspire and learn. So let's jump into learn a bit about you, mate. Tell us a pre-football Matt first. So tell us about you and then give us a bit of the thumbnail of your career.
Okay, so childhood, Matt. So short version, I suppose. Both my parents were England #1 table tennis players.
Wow, right.
My mum was European junior mixed doubles champions. She was also doubles champion. My dad was the England head coach for table tennis. So that was a sort of start of the upbringing. Obviously, they'd finished. That's how they met. They finished playing when me and my brother come along. I've got an older brother, but I suppose competitive nature and I suppose discipline, that side of things was quite apparent in my childhood. But if I'm completely honest, I absolutely loved my childhood growing up. I mean, me and my wife always laugh that she sort of says I didn't really have a childhood, whereas I look at it completely different. I absolutely loved it because I mean, I did sport all the time. I understand now having kids that you want them out of the house and you want them running around and all the energy. So I can see what my mum and dad did with me and my brother. But I did football, I did swimming, I did athletics, I did cross country. Yeah, I did absolutely everything that I could possibly get thrown into. And I suppose as a kid, I thrived in the individual sports rather than the team sports. I think with regards to individually, I knew that I'd done the training. I knew that I'd prepared. I knew that I was ready to go to in that moment. It was me against someone else, and mentally I was able to cope with that. But I mean, don't get me wrong, not at 6 and 7, but as I was slowly getting older, I was able to get into a zone and get myself mentally prepared to basically psych the other person out before going into that race. Whereas in a team sport within football, I suppose at that age, I was sort of thinking that I was relying on other people to pass me the ball. If I wasn't getting the ball, I wasn't in the game. And then you've got loads of different people and different stages of development and size and strength. And I suppose that I still loved it. And I was one of them really annoying kids that I was Surrey champion at swimming. I was Surrey champion athletics, Surrey champion cross country, was in the Surrey team in football. So I was doing something every single night of the week, sometimes 2, sometimes 3 on a weekend, going from a football game in the morning to an athletics meet in the afternoon to a swimming gala in the evening. And then turning up to at school, you had like someone's birthday. It was like the school disco on a Saturday night. I'd be turning up about 10 o'clock, stinking of chlorine, coming for the last dance. That was my sort of, I suppose, childhood. But I absolutely loved it. There's lots of sacrifice, lots of things, but it didn't seem like that to me as a kid. I loved the competitive, the competing, the challenge of training, and that was something that I really enjoyed.
So when did football become your pathway then? If you've got, 5, 6, 7 other sports on the go and you've got a notion for individual aspects.
Yeah, well, football was always going to be my number one. Yeah, that was always my number one. But I did everything, all of the others up until I was probably about 14. And that was because my cross country coach was sort of said to me, look, you've now got calves and quads and you're not really a cross country runner. And the same with my athletics coach. But I loved the training. I loved that competitive edge, and like the swimming. I loved. Yeah, I mean, I was good at swimming. I was never going to be the best because I was so small, but and I didn't really grow much more after that. But yeah, I just loved the training, and it was so good for me with football as well. That was my, the cross country was great for my stamina. So was swimming. Um, so was all of the athletics. So was that whole side of things was brilliant for me to gain different strengths from different other
Yeah.
sports to then take it into football. And I don't get me wrong, I was in an academy from when I was 9 years old. I was at Millwall, so I was in a Millwall academy from 9 till 16. So I was training Tuesday, Thursday, playing on a Saturday and Sunday. So it was again a lot of sacrifice from parents as well, trying to
Mm.
take me to all of these different things. But that was just what I enjoyed. That's what I lived and breathed.
There's quite a lot of research that says if you do like a real range of sports, particularly in your formative years, they help whatever sport you end up knuckling down on. Do you think that definitely applies to your experience?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's why I try. I've got a 9 year old son and yesterday 6 year old
Yeah,
girl.
happy birthday to her. I saw that
Yeah,
on.
so I try and my daughter's she's not really that into sport at the moment. She's more the dance, the drama. But my son, he does everything. He does football. He's doing rugby at school. He's doing hockey at school. He did tennis from when he was 2. He does golf now. He loves cricket. So I want him to experience and try and go and do whatever he wants, because each sport has something different. There's either a team ethic or a team responsibility, or there's an individual thing that you've got to learn. And I really enjoy, and I was the same. Maybe not in cricket. I didn't really enjoy cricket, but I love that different aspects of a team, and also just having that individual side of things, because I think you just learn massively about yourself in that environment. And then obviously a team is full of individuals who have all sorts of different ideas of how they think it should be going. And then you've got management, and then you've got politics, and then you've got all
Yeah.
sorts that goes on with that, which I mentor players now, and it's just trying to get them into, like, you can't think about anyone else. You can only control what you can do. And I'm still trying to sort of get my son into that as well, because he's worried about what everyone else is up to and what they think of this and that. And no, just focus on yourself. And if you can be the best that you can be, then nothing else really sort of matters.
I find retrospectively it's a lot easier to see all those components, isn't it? So which is why mentors and sponsors are so vital when you're a player at any stage, but or a sports person, sorry, at any stage. But once you've sort of got to the tail end of your career, you can easily see a lot more of those aspects and understand where you fit in that team, how to be the best in that team, and even just learn how to communicate with your teammates and all the different sort of stakeholders that come with it. So I totally understand what you're saying there. So Millwall up till 16. Do you want to then give us the 16 to whenever you retire, the 35, 36, and
Yeah, in
a,
a
a few
short
minutes
version.
as well? Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, it's Millwall till 16. At 16, I actually got released. I got told I wasn't good enough, which destroyed me as a 16-year-old. But luckily for me, I signed at Gillingham. So I went on trial, signed at Gillingham, who were in the Championship at the time. Did my first year YT, then played in the first team from 17 in the Championship. Did a 3.5 year pro there. Absolutely loved it. Then I moved to Wolves, who were in the Championship, just missed out via the playoffs in the season before. I'd signed there with Mick McCarthy. We missed out on playoffs in our first year by 1 goal, which was brutal. And then second year we won the Championship as champions. Did another 3 years in the Premier League there with Wolves. Played for England while I was at Wolves. First time in about 30 years from Steve Ball that anyone at Wolves has played for England. So
Oh,
that was
brilliant. Okay.
quite an
Yeah.
achievement, considering we were in the relegation zone. and then signed at West Ham there after that season. Wolves, unfortunately, we got relegated, so I signed club record signing at West Ham in that summer. Did 4 or 5 years there, which was amazing. We finished 10th, 13th, 12th, I think, in the first 3 seasons in the Premier League for a new promoted side, which was incredible. And then I went on loan to Norwich, which then got into a permanent. So I was there for about 4 years, which started incredibly well in my first sort of 10, 11 games, scored in my debut, scored in my second game, and it was all going well. And then unfortunately, that's where for me, I decided to do something that I don't really normally do, and that was tackle. And that was, I tried to tackle Yaya Toure, and he was a bit bigger and stronger than me. And I hurt my knee. And then that's sort of where my injury spell at Norwich really hit. And I had 4 operations in 3 years, had a really difficult time there, managed to get myself back fit right towards the end after being told by the specialist to retire, and the Norwich to offered me a year's pay up to leave. So I turned it all down and got myself back fit after a long period. And then I went on loan to Walsall for about 10 games where I absolutely loved it. But then I hurt my ankle again and had to have another operation. My contract with Norwich was up, and then I signed at Woking in the National League. Part-time, was amazing, around the corner from me. My first game I came on as sub, scored with my second touch, got an assist. We won 2-0. I come from the hospital the following weekend. My daughter had just been born, played the last half an hour, got another assist. Thinking, 60 minutes played, 1 goal, 2 assists. I was buzzing. And then COVID hit and the National League was completely put, like everywhere. And then the following year in the National League, I signed up and did another season at Woking, which I loved it. But in the National League with no fans, it's really difficult for the club and everything that goes on. So it was more of a difficult season. And then at the end of the season, I actually got furloughed for the last few games. And then I just decided that, I'd sort of come back to play for my own personal pride and my own personal determination and sacrifice of missing out on quite a few things. I missed my son growing up for the first sort of 2 years because I was injured and away. So I wanted sort of that spell to sort of mean something. So I carried on as long as I possibly could. And I decided that, 35, I'd done 18, 19 years professionally, about 450 games. I was like, yeah, my body was sort of done at that point.
Which is less than 0.01% of the population will ever get to do as well, so incredible achievements that you've just articulated there. Before we sort of start leaning into the injuries aspect and what we can learn from there, a couple of things I found quite fascinating as you were talking. See, the going to Woking, did you have ambition to get back into full time at that stage and sort of use that as a jump start or a reignite? And then obviously you said COVID hit and it became a different kind of grind. Or were you sort of mentally in that, enjoy, see your family, start to think about it as a lifestyle rather than your main?
Yeah, I probably a bit of both, if I'm completely honest. Once I'd had my operation, got myself back fit after the Walsall, I went to a couple of clubs and was basically, I suppose, promised something and then it got let down. And I think, being away for such a long time and missing out on a lot and, being injured. And I think my wife was very much in the thing of like, why are you still playing? You need to look after your body because, you want to be able to run around with your kids in the garden, as they grow up. And I suppose that sort of pulled a little bit on my heartstrings. But I was, if I'm completely honest, I was very selfish. I just wanted to play. That was all I'd ever done and wanted to do. And I was determined to play. And then once, I suppose, I got promised a couple of offers and it didn't materialise. And I got the chance. Martin Tyler, weirdly enough, I was starting to do the media. Mm-hmm. So I'd done quite a lot with BT when Wolves were in the Europa League, and then I was doing some Sky bits. And then Martin Tyler called me up and I didn't have his number, and he called me up and he was like, "Oh, hi, Matt, it's Martin Tyler." And I was like, yeah, I know the voice. This
Very
is, yeah.
recognizable,
I
yeah.
was, I was thinking, this is great. Like, I've just started to do media work. What's he want me to do at Sky? And then he just said, "Oh, I don't know if you know, but I'm the assistant manager at Woking. Yeah, we'd
Ah,
love for you
right,
to
okay.
come down and play. And I know you're a local lad, and you grew up near the area." And to be honest, at that point, I'd done so much hard graft on my own that I wanted to go and play and to make all of that sort of mean something. So it was sort of, I suppose, right place, right time.
Mm.
I went down and played in this game. He called me on the Friday. I played in this friendly against QPR 23s on the Tuesday, I think it was, for Woking. I don't know how long I played, about 80 minutes or something. Absolutely loved it. The lads were great. And I just thought, you know what? This is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. I can live at home. I train twice a week, play on the weekend, still be able to do all my other bits because I was doing media, I was doing other bits. I just thought this was the perfect sort of scenario to me to move back in to home life as well, and to
Yeah.
look after my body. So it was great for about 2 weeks.
Aye. Do you know, there's a listener question I was going to ask at the very end, but I think it's quite relevant to pull in now. And I've written down as you were talking there, sounds like you've had at least 7 operations. So that mental toll, sorry, that physical toll on your body, that you don't really think about as an outsider or a fan when you're watching sport. You don't really think about the sort of physical toll. But the question was, having invested so much physically and built so many relationships, how did you feel emotionally when you had to end your career? And that is from Pete G.
Yeah. How did I feel? I think it's one of the hardest decisions, to make, because you sort of think that you're going to play forever. Um, I mean, from what I went through in that sort of 3 year period, I suppose, at Norwich, if someone had told me what I would have to go through to get to the other end, I don't think I would have been able to do it. It was the toughest thing I've ever had to do, like physically, emotionally, everything. But because it was sort of, I had one operation, got myself back fit, went through all the bits, got back into training, injured, another operation, build yourself up, got yourself back fit, another one. You're sort of always chasing, and that hamster wheel of keep going. So I was so mentally so focused on, I'm gonna get myself back fit, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And I'm getting told this and told that. And I was just like, once it got to a certain point, I was like, well, I'm 100% coming back. I don't care what's happening now. I've missed so much of my family. I've missed this. I've been getting absolutely trolled by everyone here and that. And I was just like, no, like I am going to get back. I am going to do this. When it is, I've got no idea. But then I suppose when you get to that point of, I can look back on my whole career when I made that decision. It was actually on my birthday. I was like, do you know what? I literally could not have given any more at
Mm.
all. Like, I eat the most out of my ability. I did absolutely everything. I've reached the pinnacle. I played for England, in Wembley. I could never look back and go, if only I'd have just worked harder, if only I trained a bit more, if only I did this. I can look back on my whole career with no regrets at all, knowing that I've given absolutely everything. And I think that's quite, for me, it's quite, as like a peaceful, I know like that's the best I could have done. So it wasn't an easy decision at all. But to make it and to look back and think, you know what, it was amazing. I loved every minute of it, and I couldn't, even the injuries, even that, it made me who I am today. It was, it made me mentally stronger. It made me, appreciate everything. And even though my body's an absolute wreck, I was a pincushion for about, 18 years, the amount of injections I've had, and God, it is awful. But you do it because it's the love of the game. You want to be playing. You're desperate to play in the next game. You don't want anyone to take your place. You want to be involved. You're striving for that next thing all of the time. And to be honest, I never looked back. when I was playing. It was only when COVID hit and people started doing podcasts and you start talking about your career and you're like, actually, yeah, that was pretty amazing, and
Yeah.
that was pretty cool. But before that, you never look back. You're always on to the next thing. You're always on to the next thing, um,
Yeah.
and that chase is real.
So maybe it sounds like the way you use the word peaceful, so it makes me think by the end you maybe had like a really good sense of satisfaction over your career rather than a sense of what could have been, which is good because I did wonder if there would have been hidden costs because of your injuries. But you've answered so many of my questions in that monologue there that you said. So let me start firing
Go for it.
some at you, right? So before, like, it would be good to know like what injuries you actually had. I think at Norwich, from the research I've done and what you explained there, it sounds like they were key. Sorry, key being the wrong word. They were most prevalent. Going back a wee bit, what was your injury history like just across your career? And were you somebody that thought about injury prevention as part of your overall training and recovery methods quite proactively? Because you sound like you love the training, you love the challenge of, being physically at your peak. What's your sort of just even minor injury history and thinking about injury prevention process like?
Yeah, I suppose from when I was younger, going from Gillingham, I suppose all the way up to sort of West Ham. I I had sort of, I suppose, minor injuries that were, the grade ones out for 2 weeks with a slight groin or something. I suppose, two hernia ops when I was at Gillingham. So one at 18, one at
Not doing
19, I
your
think it
core work?
was. Well, I mean, I used to love the gym. Honestly, I still do. But I don't know what it was. When I got told I had a hernia, I was like, "Isn't that for old people?" But
Yeah.
yeah, so I had one done when I was 18 because they said the other side was fine. And then the following year, the other one went, so I had the other one done. But I was only out for 5 weeks with them. Had the mesh put in. I had ankle. I was out for a couple of months with my ankle. When I knocked the ball past the goalkeeper, and he come out to collect the ball and landed on my ankle. So that was sore. But apart from that, I didn't really have too much at Gillingham. Wolves, I think I had two sort of, not big injuries, but I had one where in pre-season when I first got there, I was out for about 10 weeks with a sort of hip or quad injury, top of my quad. And then the only other one there for Wolves really was I done my hamstring, where
I
I
did
was out for
wonder
about 10
because
weeks.
I did wonder because of your position if muscular injuries would have been higher risk. You've mentioned a balance between impact injuries and
I'd
muscular
say
injuries.
most of my, apart from that hamstring one, most of my injuries were all impact,
Mm.
all tackles or challenges. As we move on to West Ham, I didn't have too many. They were more like muscular ones where I was out for 2 weeks, and that's like a little groin or a little quad or something. I only ever really, I say touch wood, but not like I'm playing anymore. But I only ever had one sort of hamstring injury, and that was like a big one. I was out for 10 weeks at Wolves, but I never had a problem since, and didn't have a problem before, and that was only on one leg. So as you talk about prevention, I think when I first started at Gillingham, I don't really think that was a thing. But we get told to stretch after training and do all that. But I was I loved sort of the training. I loved doing extras. I loved going in the gym. I loved doing all that. So I was doing the most that I could do. I think once I went to Wolves, you then sort of start understanding, and sports science has come on a lot more. I was then doing the ice baths. We were doing pre-activation to going
Yeah.
outside before you train. We were then doing stuff afterwards. We were then doing stuff in the gym. And then I suppose when I got towards the end of Gillingham, and definitely, obviously, once I moved away from home properly, I was in digs when I was at Gillingham. So you sort of eat whatever's given to you, I suppose. Then when I moved to Wolves, I moved out with my, I say wife now, she was girlfriend at the time, and then you're sort of, I suppose, left to fend for yourself. So it was I was very lucky. My wife she's a great cook, and she was able to put together what I need. The club would give you sort of I suppose, a nutritional
Like a diet
booklet,
plan, yeah, yeah.
and we would sort of go through that. And I was quite I was quite on it really with my diet. That was with the help of my wife, but you then the sports science really comes into its own, and you sort of know what's good for you, what's not good for you. I then went to West Ham, and
I
I
think
did, I did a lot
do you
more.
take that on board though? Was kind of a where what I was thinking because a lot of people, or not, sorry,
Yeah,
that's a lot of people are sort of like, yeah, I know that's what you're saying, but I'm still having chocolate, or I'm still
no,
doing
100%.
extras, or yeah,
No, I was one of them. My thing, even with my players that look after now, mine's the 1%. You know, if it was going to give me 1% difference, you know, I'd take it. You know, if you said eat this because this is going to be beneficial for you, fine, I'd take the 1%.
mm.
All these, you know, I used to rattle, you know, the amount of tablets you used to take to try and do all of this. And then, you know, it's the same with when we started when I was at Wolves. We started bringing in like I say sports psychology, but it was more like we were like visualization and doing all this. And you know what it's like in the change room. Everyone's like, "No, I'm not doing that." But I was like, I'll give it a go because if it's going to help me and benefit me, that little 1%, I was like, why would I not do it? So I did do it, and then you start picking up other things. When I was at West Ham, I did all of the food intolerance tests. I did all of the everything to know what was red, which for me was gluten, dairy, wheat,
Oh wow,
starch, the whole
right.
shebang. So I went through a spell in my last season. I was at West Ham. I only played about 11 games. Sam Allardyce decided to change the formation, didn't play with wingers. So I didn't. I found myself out of the team for the first sort of time in my whole sort of career. So that was tough. But I sort of decided that I can only control what I can do. So I was like, right, my diet was impeccable. I was training more. I was after training. I was running. I was doing the gym. So I got myself into a really unbelievable shape. But I was, I cut out gluten, dairy, wheat. I did everything, and I was probably went a little bit too far. My body fat was like super low. I was low anyway, but this was like, I thought I was in unbelievable shape. But
So
I then
what
sort of
as in like
retested.
what like 3%, 4%,
No,
or
no,
what?
no, no.
Or,
I think I was around about. Normally, it was about 7. I think I was down
right,
to
okay.
like
Uh,
6%. But it was. I
Even
think,
still, yeah, that's
yeah,
that.
which there was nothing on me.
Yeah.
But
Hello, folks. Hope you're enjoying this episode so far with Matt. If you are getting value from this and want to support the podcast, there's a link in the show notes to buy me a coffee. It would really support the podcast if you do it. If you are getting value and help me continue to get guests that will provide great content for you. Okay, thanks, and back to this episode.
I retested about 6 months later, and the only thing that changed was I didn't have gluten in because obviously I hadn't had the gluten. So I sort of decided that I could just sort of bring it back in, and I wasn't as rigid after that. I was trying to sort of
Yeah,
keep a little bit of everything in my diet.
but I think
But
the summary of all that then is though you really did take care of your body as much as you could have. It wasn't like you skipped corners and therefore when your
no,
injuries came, you could blame a bit of dehydration or a bit, sounds like you really were on top of what you could possibly be on top of.
yeah,
Wh- wh- wh-
100%.
yeah, which is really, really good. The just thinking about the actual serious injuries then, what were they and where were you in your career?
Yeah, well, I think really I probably just skipped to Norwich because the other ones were, I was back playing in no time at all, really. Norwich, my first one was when I block tackled Yaya Toure. I did my MCL. Um, at the time, it was like, yeah, it's deep fibre MCL. You don't need an operation. You can be back in 10 weeks. So I did all of the rehab, where your muscle completely goes, you then build it back up, you try and get yourself going, you do all of that, which I did. I got myself back in training after about 10 weeks, but my knee was killing me, really. It was so sore. I was kicking medicine balls against the wall because if you've ever done your medial, it leaves, if you catch it wrong, it's sore for a while. So the idea was to keep hitting it and you sort of get used to the pain, I suppose.
Like a
So I
sting,
did,
isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
really sore. So
Mhm.
I did. I was doing that, and I actually played the rest of the season. but my knee was in bits. I was having injections all through the season. I was going international break, have another jab in my knee to get through. And then I got to the end of the season and my knee was still in bits. And then I started to have injections all through the summer, PRP injections, which is the blood. They take the blood, they spin it, they take the good platelets, and then they inject that back into your knee. So I did that all through the summer. I come back to pre-season. I'd worked so hard in the summer to keep my fitness, to do everything. I come back pre-season, and the first week I was like, all the running, everything was fine. I could not kick the ball with my right foot. It was so sore. And in the end, I just said to them, look, I can't do it anymore. So I went under the knife, and when I woke up, they were like, "Oh yeah, your medial wasn't attached properly." So I played like 7 months of football in the Premier League. My medial wasn't attached properly, so I then had to have that operation where they pinned my medial in, so it was all done. I did 3 months. I was out. I come back and I was flying. My leg had obviously gone. You get like a granny leg where all the muscles have completely gone and you have to build it all back up. And I did all of that, got myself back fit. My first training session back with the squad, I was great. I felt great. I've got the ball, I've cut inside. As I've had a shot, one of the lads has come flying out to block it. And as I've shot with my ankle, as I've hit it, my ankle sort of pinged back. And I knew I'd done something. I was like, oh, wow, that was sore. But because I've been out for so long, I was like, no, I'm fine. Like, I iced it after training. I was doing all this. I then went and had a scan, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you've got inflammation on the back of the ankle. Get through to the next international break, and we'll jab you." So I sort of got through training the next sort of week or so. I couldn't do anything after, which I loved doing extras. I couldn't. I just sort of got through training. I then got through to the next international break, had a jab, didn't train for the next 2 days, then got myself back in, and it was the same. It was sore. At this point, I think Alex Neil got the sack. So it was sort of a bit of a transition, I suppose, at Norwich as well. And I sort of got through training, had another jab, got through the next bit, got to the next international break, and I wasn't able to do anything. My ankle was killing me. And at that point, I suppose the season sort of just fell away a little bit because there was no manager, there was this, there was that. And I got through to the summer. I had more injections all through the summer. Again, come back pre-season and the same thing happened. I got about the second week of pre-season was like, I can't carry on. It's too sore. So I went in for exploratory surgery, thinking I was going to be back playing in about 4 to 6 weeks. And when I woke up from the op, they basically showed that all of the inflammation was around the cartilage at the back. But then when they went in and touched the cartilage, it all fell off.
It just, oh, right.
So when I was running, that's why I could run and was fine. But then when I went to stop, the cartilage moved and then I was just bone on bone. I was just bang.
So basically, you had no cartilage on impact.
I had no cartilage, yeah. So I was just bone on bone. So then they had to do what's called a microfracture, where they drill holes in the bone and it bleeds, and then that sets, and that's my what's called fibrous tissue. So that my dry blood is my cartilage, and that was sort of like an unknown date of when to come back, and that was that's the worst. Yeah, my knee was just it just needed operation, and I did the rehab. Come back, my ankle was. It's called a osteochondral defect, where that's if you hear what people say about that, it's one that you just got to manage, and it was awful. it was absolutely awful. I couldn't walk downhill because if I went like that, it was just pinching and the bones were coming together. That's
literally the first thing that came to my mind there. It's like your actual daily life and how you manage getting mobility wise.
It was awful. And months and months went by. It wasn't getting any better. I was, I think about 8-7 months into it, I was still sort of no closer really. One of the other players, I think it was Alex Pritchard, was injured for a few months, and they decided to sort of, I suppose, Norwich were like, Alex and me to go away to it's called Team Exos, to go and get some sort of rehab somewhere else. And so I sort of said to them, I was like, not really sure why I'm going, but they were like, I think it'd be good for you to get away, go and have something different and do
New
that. And also,
environment, all
yeah,
that.
so
Yeah.
I did. I had 2 weeks, which was amazing. Really good training, excellent, but my ankle was still
Mm.
shocking, really. And then I sort of come back, and I picked up I because I was sort of moving, walking different. I started picking up other injuries, so I picked up like little, what's called grade one, so like 7 to 10 days. I was picking up groin injuries. I was picking up something else, and then I picked up what's called um, IT band friction syndrome. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's called runner's knee.
Yeah. I've not
It's
heard of friction syndrome, but I know,
Yeah,
yeah,
IT
people,
band friction
yeah.
syndrome. Yeah, and
Mm.
that is what it's like every time you run and you put your foot down. It was like having a dagger to the side of the knee. It was awful pain. And because I'd obviously had injections, I did have injections in my knee to sort of help with that. But they were at the time, Norwich were like, look, we're not going to do what we've done the last 2 times. You're just going to go straight in for surgery. So I went in and had more surgery on my knee to clean up all of the area around my IT band where it was all like red and inflamed and sore. And then that was another period where I'd obviously lost the muscles again, had to
Yeah.
build up. I went and did all of my rehab again, and then it took a long time, and I was sort of coming back, and my ankle was starting to get better. I was doing it's called isokinetics, I think in London is where I went for a little bit of time after my IT ban to go and get some treatment there, and then I sort of was basically up in Norwich on my own for 6 out of 7 days. Really, my wife and I just had my son. She moved back down south to get some help. She would come up and back as often as I could, and I would do the same. But so I was sort of sitting on my own a lot, in pain, not being able to move properly, and it was. I play it down a lot because it was awful. And what goes with everything that happens in that sort of time period, you go in early, you do all your stuff, you then watch all the lads come in, they all go outside and train, and you're sat in the gym looking out onto the pitch, watching everyone train. You come in, then you go for lunch, you come back, you stay later than everyone else doing all of the mundane, boring stuff in the gym. You don't really feel like you're making any progress. That's the hard part. Then you're obviously getting pelters for being injured because you've been injured for 2.5 years. So cutting a long story short, I eventually got myself sort of back fit, and I was getting into an amazing position where I was actually feeling good doing all that. And then I do my last sort of, I suppose, rehab or training with the sports science before I go back into training, and I'd be flying, and then I'd just do something and I'd pick up like a 7 to 10 day injury, and it was just like it's like touching distance, and then it would break down again, and then you build yourself back up. It's only 7 to 10 days, and I was like, I know, but it's been 2.5 years. You've just it feels like every time I got to a certain point, it was just taken away at the last
Yeah.
minute. But I did eventually get myself fit. At the time, Norwich were flying; they were top of the championship. Daniel Farker was the manager. I had a really good relationship with him. He basically it was coming up to January, and he basically said that Walsall had come in and said they wanted to take me on loan. He was like, look, as a manager, I want to keep you because you're great around the change room. You're a great player. You're great with the lads. But as a person, I think you need to go and play some games because you've gone through hell and back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, do you know what? That's fine. I'll go and play some games. So I did. I went and played. My first game was for Walsall. I played away in the cup against Bolton, and I just remember like walking out onto that pitch, and then lining up, and it was just the best feeling
Mm.
to get back out there. And in the first 10 minutes, I got my first assist. I got 2 assists in the game. We lost the game. Doesn't matter about that, but I got 2 assists, and I was so buzzing. And then did my 10 games, and then I got tackled on my ankle again, and I knew it was sore. So then I had to have surgery again on my ankle, and it was a clean up, so it wasn't too bad. And then I did my own rehab down in Reading in a place called Go Perform, and got myself back fit. And that's when I was like, right, here we go. All right, let's see what the crack is. And I went to a couple of clubs and trained, and they were like, yeah, we want to sign you, blah, 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 blah. And then it got to the day that I was signing, and they both pulled out. So that's when I then went to Woking and yeah, it was just amazing to feel that, go back in and play and score on my debut, got an assist and got another assist, thinking this was going to be amazing, and then COVID hit.
That's an incredibly challenging injury story that you've just told there. My hips, knees, and ankles were feeling sore by the end of it as you
Yeah.
spoke.
You should see me now.
And I didn't actually mean to say that with a smile on my face, but
Yeah.
you smiled, so it made me smile.
Yeah.
I think, do you know, there's a lot of different components that you went through there that I think people can learn from. The There's two or three that really jump out to me. So I want to ask you about these and just see how if you can relate to them. So one of them, you sound like you like training as a big part of your daily fabric, right? You've sort of majored on that on this discussion so far. People have things that they attach their identity to, and when they like, so it could be their wife, it could be their job, it could be a project they're working on, and then when those get taken away via health, divorce, whatever it might be, they have total identity loss. Did you sort of feel that and manage to rebuild a sort of sense of self? And would you give any advice to somebody that has got a total identity to what they do on a day-to-day basis? Or is that not something you did feel when you weren't training, that you weren't Matt as such?
I definitely had a periods where I think it's the your purpose. I think is the biggest thing. I think I felt that more once I finished playing, was purpose. But at that time, I think for me it's just being on that hamster wheel. As I bring it back to that, because you're constantly on it and you're spinning and you're just waiting to get in off at the next stop, and it just constantly goes. So that period in time, you're just chasing the next day. Am I gonna feel better the next day? Yeah, I suppose in a way I was quite fortunate that at the time there was two other players that were on long-term injuries. So I had one guy was called Louis Thompson. He snapped his Achilles, had surgery, snapped his Achilles again. So he'd done it twice. And then Carlton Morris had done his ACL. So we were all sort of injured at the same time. Yes, all different injuries, all going through different stuff. But there's days where I was down, my ankle was sore or knee was sore, and I couldn't do this. And they were sort of having a good day, and I would have to do a bike session when you're on the altitude mask and you're having to get through it. And I was like, oh God. And they were like, no, come on, get it in, get all in a bank and do that. And then the next day they would be having a bad day, I would be on and up. You just sort of get through the gym sessions together, and that, I suppose, I know it's all individual, but everyone's got something, and the physios, you're in that physio room together. You're just trying to feed off something, some sort of
Yeah.
energy to get yourself through it. Me mentally, I am very mentally strong. Even on the days that you don't want to do it, I'd be like, no, I'm doing it because if I don't do it, that's another day ticked off. I need to be on it. I need to be doing it, and I'd have my own high standards of stuff. And yeah, as I say, I look back, I don't know how I did it, but
Yeah.
you're
I
just
think,
in it and you live and breathe it.
yeah, and one of the other things I was thinking is that sort of continual setback, if you like. So people might, they might own a business and they're not quite getting the customers they want, or they might be looking for a new job and their applications aren't coming through. But you've mentioned it's those small wins that really kept you going.
Yeah, I mean, I do leadership workshops. I just go into businesses and talk about it because everything's relatable. And the small little setbacks, that they're the ones that you just have to, you get yourself back in and right. What am I doing now? What's the next best thing that I can do? And for me, it was work harder. I just reverted back to right. I need to work and work and work. And that was how I sort of got through it. I don't get me wrong. I definitely feel like you need a period of, depending on the situation, you need a period of like you're angry, sad, frustrated, disappointed, whatever it is. You do need to feel that, and you've got to embrace that, because that's going to be there. But you've got to be able to have a light switch and just right now I'm into positive mode. That's happened, but now I need to move forward. And I had so many of them. The roller coaster ride of football is incredible. Everyone thinks the highs. There's so many highs. There is some highs, but there's a lot more lows than you think. And it is a roller coaster, and you just got to try and sort of stay level. The highs aren't too high, the lows aren't too low. You just got to sort of stay on that steady middle ground. But it's really difficult. It is, because every single day, you go in and it's the same, but it's not. Every single day is different. And that's the part of the fun. That's the part of the game. That's the part of the energy and everything that you've got to go in and be the best every single day.
Yeah, and so sort of connected to that when you do feel a bit stuck. So you mentioned you're quite mentally resilient, which sort of comes through just in the way that you've told the story. Did you ever have those elements of loneliness or feeling like you wouldn't return to your old self? So therefore, I might not be that explosive winger that I was, and have those bits of self-doubt that were maybe harder to overcome than the actual physical recovery?
Yeah, I mean, there's many days, and I say this with a smile on my face because I suppose it's the only way you can get through it. I was very lucky. My wife's she talks. Her mum's a psychotherapist. Yeah, they're all very much, they talk about everything, and I'm sort of very much the other way. Whereas they made me talk through it. I used to go back and sit on the sofa and cry on my own because it was just awful. But I suppose that was able to give my release. And was I able to overcome it because of that? Maybe. I don't know. But there's so many different factors that come with it. And I think, for me, when I used to get them setbacks, it was awful at the time. You think, right, but then I'd just be like, well, it's only this. I've been through worse. I can get through that. And to be able to go back and just sort of implement that and go, right, I've been through worse here. I can get myself back. And my whole thought process and the whole thing was, again, I was very selfish. I was thinking that all of the sacrifice that I've made, everything that I've gone through, it needs to be worth something. So I was never going to retire. Never. I was never going to be told you're not allowed to do it anymore. That was never on my radar. And even the specialist game, I went back and spoke to them. They did this when they put iodine in so they can see where everything is, and they were like, that's the best we could have hoped for. That is the best. Like, you need to retire. And I was like, I'm not retiring. And even Norwich offering me a year's money to go, I was like, no. Like, what am I going to do? I need the physio, I need the treatment, I need the sports science, I want to play. And that is the brutal part of it. I was maybe I should have, because my body probably was suffering.
You're working through your own perspective though, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, you've got your own purpose as well.
Yeah.
But which is quite interesting, because earlier on you mentioned that the experience kind of helped you become the person you are today.
Yeah.
When you say that, what do you dig into in terms of it helping you who you are today, and help you with your personal brand and all these other aspects of your life just now?
Because I feel like it wasn't a dream, because I lived and breathed it every day. But you go back and you think about it, and you're like, I don't know how I got through it. I genuinely don't. And then you sort of look at that and you think, well, actually, if I could have got through that, I can get through anything. Really can. And that's why my whole thing now is I did this course, this BSI course, CEO of a sports organization, and then on one of the modules you have to say, what is your edge, and what's the thing that makes you you. And I sort of thought long and hard about it, and I was like, for me now is I like to get into the uncomfortable situation and make myself comfortable, so that I get asked to do loads of stuff that I've never done before, and I'll say yes, because I thrive in that environment of when you're under pressure and you need to perform, and that's what I enjoy. So being asked to do something that, going up and speaking in front of whatever, I'll be like, yeah, and then like, right, okay, and now I need to get myself comfortable being in that situation. And I think that has come from what has actually happened to me in that journey through football, not just injuries, but through football. Because as much as it is the best job in the world, and I'd never change it, it's brutal. It is brutal. But it's been the best thing that I could have ever dreamed for. It was my dream as a kid, like many others, and I've been very fortunate. I've been able to live it.
That's that hamster wheel as well that you go back to, isn't it? So you accepting challenges that you've not completed before, that's wanting to be pushed beyond your current capabilities, and that keeps you improving, and that keeps you looking for the next win and self and sense of achievement. I can this whole interview, I can just see that in you on like a constant basis. Um, through all of this as well, I think this will be my last sort of negativity type question because I realise that it's been we've maybe been in that sort of tone for a while. Did you develop any new traits or habits across this period during your recoveries that help that you still use today? That you mentioned you were on a course there. You thought about what your edge is, but is there anything in your day to day life or across your sort of routines that you've changed when you were through things you experienced from when you were injured?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been quite consistent. I think for me with all of it, my routines are really important to me. I don't like, not that I don't like, I like having structure. I like having a purpose. I like having sort of a bit of a routine.
Yeah,
That's because I know it's not to the same degree, but it's like being in the military. You get told what to do, where to be, what to eat, when to eat. That's what I've lived and breathed for sort of 20 years or so. So when I come out of it, there is an element of you lose that purpose, you lose that self. What's going on day to day basis. What am I doing? So I love having a purpose each and every day. I love having a structure and a routine. Gym is, even though my body's not great, I've got another knee up coming up in a couple of months.
oh, have you? Oh, right.
Yeah, but
And you're not an elite sports person anymore.
no. I don't really play that often anymore. But I still love it. I still love and live and breathe it. I still go in the gym, well, as much as I can most days. But it's part of that purpose. I think I always come back to it.
Yeah.
That's I've lived and lived the dream really. So then when you come away from that, it's like, oh wow, what am I going to do now? But that's why I really enjoy jumping into all of these different things that I'm doing currently, and I love it. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it. So it's something that that's a big passion for me, and it's something that I really enjoy.
Yeah. The I sort of wasn't really going to ask you this, but I've changed my mind. So the I think earlier on I mentioned the hidden cost of your
Yeah,
injuries, right? So what I've written down is you've probably missed over 100 games over those 3 or 4 seasons at least. Quite a lot of that could have been top flight football, given that it's a short career. Or in totality, you mentioned 15 years, and it's a brutal regime on your body as such. But it's a short time to maximise a football career. Do you think there is like a hidden impact on maximizing, even post-career commercial opportunities and those types of things? Or is it back to what you said earlier, where you really gave everything you had and you do have a nice sense of peace and satisfaction over your retrospective feelings?
yeah. I think the second one for sure. But
Right.
don't get me wrong. I look back now and social media, and I all of my things were private, really. So you could look at commercial opportunities. There's definitely that. I think if I didn't get injured or didn't that, I think that I could have easily got another 3 years playing in the Premier League at that
Yeah.
level easily. I'd still play now if I could. Genuinely, I would. So definitely on a financial aspect, that would have been another 3 4 years of good money. That's obviously has an impact. But even just playing, that I missed. I missed so much. But it's not just the football side. I missed weddings, birthdays, funerals. You name it. I
That's what I was
missed.
going to say, the non-financial hidden cost as
Yeah,
well. Yeah. Yeah.
I missed 2 years really of my son growing up. My firstborn, he was down south. I was in Norwich. We would come back and up and as quickly as, but I was injured for the first sort of, I'd already had my first op, so I was on crutches when pretty much when he was born. So it's like, they're the sort of awful stuff that you really miss. So yeah, there's a lot that the hidden stuff, but that started from when I was when I was very young. I missed loads of birthday parties, loads of this and that, and turning up to parties late because I was at a swimming gala. That
Yeah.
was normal for me. And I don't regret any of it because I loved it.
Yeah. So
Everything for
what did you love most about being a footballer then?
I love the feeling of playing in a game.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
nothing better than that atmosphere and me picking the ball up and the crowd coming off their seat and taking someone on or scoring a goal. There is no other feeling like it. And I do the media, I do the co-commentary, I do all that, and I don't sort of get that feeling. I don't get that feeling until I go pitch side, and
Mm.
then I'm like, oh, I miss
The
it so
goosebumps
bad.
start coming,
Yeah, I
the
miss
hair
it
on your
so
neck.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I have got one listener question which is not really related to any of that stuff. It's actually more about what you're up to now. Do you want to give a quick couple of minutes on what you're up to just now with the
Sure.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm an ambassador at West Ham, so I'm there every home game. I do all of the corporate stuff, and I work with their foundation. And I'm the ambassador for the DSA, Disabled Supporters Association. So that's that part. I mentor football players. I work with Stash University. We go into Wolverhampton Wanderers Academy. So I've been doing that last couple of years, working with players. I have my own players that I work with. I am a leadership and keynote speaker. I'm working with a better their telecoms company. I work with them. I am an advisor to a sports psychology app called Unlock, which is an incredible tool that players can use to help them from transition from playing to matches or training to matches and injury programs and all sorts of that. I do the media and the punditry and the co-commentary, which is I absolutely love. I'm a director in a golf events company, Heritage Golf and Apex Golf, which
How
is
how you have
amazing.
time to see your family is beyond
Well,
me.
and I got two young kids,
Aye.
but the thing is, it's not every single day nine
Yeah,
till five. So
yeah. Mhm.
it's able to do that. So yeah, it's busy, but it's all stuff that I said I enjoy, and it's relevant to the crossover in sport to business is
Yeah,
huge. Um, and football, I suppose, you just get put on this pedestal, whereas you don't necessarily sort of feel like you deserve to be there, but you can use sport and football in so many other areas that people take you seriously.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah.
So this question is from Sean, and it's more to do with that player development aspect that you've got at the moment. And he says this might be a wee insight that would help us coaches. So clearly, a coach for planning. What do you believe scouts stroke clubs are looking for in young players, and what part of the game should kids be looking to focus on that would help their chances of being spotted?
Well, I know from experience with my son, I know teams now are looking for confident kids that are going to be able to go and do everything, which I don't necessarily agree with. It's some kids that develop at all these different stages. Some are loud, some are not, some are quiet, some are quick, some are strong, some are good passers, good technically, and I think everyone grows at different stages, but to be spotted, I think you need to be able to obviously good control, an eye for a pass, know when to pass, know when to shoot. But I think that's a skill that it takes time because a lot of these academies nowadays, they want you to be able to get the ball, take everyone on, score. Whereas I don't necessarily believe that's the correct. You need to be able to work as a team. Can you pass in someone else is in a better position? Do you know the position you should be in if you're on the left and the ball's on the right? Where should you be? That sort of style in a team environment. But this is why football's brutal because even at that age, you go into one team and they want you to do something completely different, and if you don't do it in that one game, you're gone. You need to. One thing I suppose, if I look back, I wish I was much more vocal at a younger age
Okay.
because I think that's being able to talk to people, being able to shout and scream in games, being able to demand the ball. not just encouragement, and being able to speak to coaches and ask them, like you said, I'm hugging the line too much. What do you want me to do?
Yeah,
Do you want
yeah,
me
got
to
you.
come inside? Do you want me to go outside? Do you want me to mix it up? Because if you don't tell me, how do I know? And I think that's a part of the game that people need to ask more questions.
Yeah, so no one size fits all,
No,
but
not at all.
communication and attitude sound like yeah, yeah.
100%. That's how as a kid, that's how I believe you should. I was never the best player, as in technically, but I worked harder than
Mhm.
anyone. And then I developed my skills, and I had to work at that and work at that. And that's where I got to.
And a really nice tone to end on, actually, as well. So thanks a lot for doing this, coming on today. Really appreciate it. Is there anything we've not discussed or covered that you would like to get over? And where should people go to find you these days?
Cool. Anything we haven't covered? I think we covered a fair few
I
things.
know we did.
Um, where can I cut? I am Matt_Jarvis_official on socials. And then I am Mr. Matt Jarvis on X, I suppose, Twitter. But apart from that, yeah, LinkedIn as well. Check me on that. And then yeah, enjoy the ride, because it's a roller coaster.
And we'll listen out for you on game day as well, because I'm still hearing you doing the media, which is brilliant. So great stuff. Look, thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for doing this. Hope you enjoyed coming on, and take
Yeah,
all the
brilliant.
best.
Thank you very much.